Recently, we have seen the Berry Apocalypse, and this really just got me thinking of all the other Brawl Apocalypses in the past. So today we'll be going over all of them and seeing their impact on Brawl Stars, so let's just get right into it. Many people assume the first Apocalypse Brawler was Edgar, however there were two more before him, with the first ever one being Rosa, who came out in April 2019. While she wasn't a free brawler, she was still extremely cheap as she only cost 19 gems upon launch, and that was obviously a really good price for an entire brawler, so literally everyone bought her. And this automatically would classify this as an apocalypse because everyone had her and everyone would play her at the beginning because she was new and easy to get. But what made this apocalypse actually bad was the fact that Rosa was really strong, mainly due to her super that literally made it so she had 80% damage reduction for a whole 6 seconds, which is really just crazy. This would make Rosa extremely strong in the game and made it so people basically had to use her. And despite being so strong, she is one of the least known apocalypses, and this is because it only lasted 4 days before she got massive nerfs to her super, which would make her not be used anymore. The first nerf was making the damage reduction go down to 70% instead of 80%, and the second nerf was reducing the duration to 4 seconds from 6 seconds, meaning it was a lot more balanced now. And personally, I think this did have a pretty big impact on the game, as Rosa will be the last rare brawler to get added to the game since we haven't gotten a new one in over 5 years. And Rosa was probably the reason why, because she was just so cheap to get. But just 2 months later, we will get the second apocalypse, and this was with Tick, who once again seems to be pretty overlooked. He will come to the game as a trophy road brawler where he was unlocked by 4,000 trophies, and this was pretty easy to achieve, meaning most people were able to get him as he was essentially free. And he was also a pretty unique brawler at the time just due to how he worked overall, and honestly he was like a fun brawler to play and mess around with, which is why he was literally being used everywhere. And he would also get some buffs later down the line, which just made him a lot stronger, and this really cemented his place in the game, and he would evolve into becoming arguably the most annoying brawler inside of the game. And the interesting part with the Tick Apocalypse was really with just how barely anyone remembers it, and this could possibly be because it was soon after the Rosa Apocalypse, or maybe because it just wasn't exactly as crazy or game breaking or anything, because Tick wasn't exactly like OP, he was just a fun brawler to play with. But anyways, over a year later we will have one of the most infamous brawler apocalypses, and this was with Edgar in December 2020. He was like the first completely free brawler with no strings attached, as literally anyone could just claim him from the shop, even if they just downloaded the game 2 minutes ago. So this would lead to literally everyone just playing him, and he was also an assassin and had some mechanics that made him really appealing to a large player base, so people would just play him longer than the last 2 apocalypse brawlers. There was like no escaping Edgar at this time since most games were really just only Edgars, and this was really because he was a good brawler and it wouldn't make sense to not use him. And his impact on the game has also really just been massive. He is now associated with being the most toxic brawler and having the most toxic player base, and the thumbs up event was most likely created due to all the Edgar players being toxic and spamming thumbs down, since that is honestly just a part of the gameplay for an Edgar player. Edgar would also really be the first super mainstream apocalypse just because he was the biggest one by a mile due to him being completely free, because the last 2 you still either needed some gems or some trophies, which not exactly everyone had. So overall the Edgar apocalypse is definitely the most infamous one, and the effects have been really long lasting since he is still one of the most used brawlers today. But a few months later you will get these 2 apocalypse, who was also a free brawler. However, it was through the trophy road at 10,000 trophies, and this wasn't like too hard, but obviously wasn't as easy as Tick. However, he was still fairly easy to get, and that made him an apocalypse brawler because I mean he was just getting used a ton like any free brawler. Stu was also pretty good, which just made him be used a lot more, and it wouldn't be until a few weeks later after release that he finally got some nerfs that would make the apocalypse die down a bit. But next up we have Grom, who will come out at the end of 2020 2021. Now he is the first brawler here that was unlockable through a challenge, which was to get 9 wins, and normally these can be hard. However, due to this time marking the 3-year anniversary of Brawl Stars going global and it also just being Brawler days, people could get more chances for literally only 1 gem, and this would make it so a lot of people could unlock Grom, and that would make him an apocalypse brawler. And he was a really good brawler because he was like a thrower that shot bombs that would go 4 ways, and there was like no delay for his attack, which was really just crazy and made him way too strong. So after a few days, Sumiso finally fixed it so that Grom would have a much bigger delay in his attack, and this would essentially stop the Apocalypse as he wasn't as strong anymore. But to further add to it, a month later he would get 3 pretty big nerfs as well that would really mark the end of the Apocalypse. But next up, we have the Gray Apocalypse, which happened 1 year after Grom. Gray was actually unlockable through a quest, which is interesting, and this was extremely easy, so obviously everyone was able to unlock him, and that caused everyone to use him as well. Now, Gray is probably one of the least well-known apocalypses because he just honestly wasn't very good, and this made it so people wouldn't use him much after the beginning. So honestly, I don't even know if he could be considered an apocalypse, but I put him on here as he was free to get at the beginning and it was pretty easy. But next up we have Meg, and I know this may sound weird since she came out in 2021, however her apocalypse will start in April 2023. This is because she would get some big changes with her mecha, and that would really make it good, and this would make a lot of people use Meg because chances were that they already had her unlocked due to her being in the game for over 1.5 years at this point. So this was really like the first massive apocalypse for Brawler way after its release date, which I think was really cool and interesting. So this would also, I guess, technically have a long-term effects as it did change how Meg really worked in general, and the apocalypse will be relatively short-lived as less than a month later she will get some pretty big nerfs to her main star power. But next up we have Miko, and he would be another completely free brawler as a part of the Brawl days that could be unlocked for free by anyone with no strings attached like Edgar. And he was also an assassin and just a good brawler in general, which would obviously lead to him getting used a ton. And as soon as he was announced, literally everyone knew there would be an apocalypse just because this was almost identical to what happened with Edgar. However, there's nothing anyone could do to prevent it, and for the next while the game was obviously flooded with Mikos, though this wouldn't last as long as Edgar or some of the other ones. But next up we actually have Larry and Laurie, and I know this is really weird since this actually costs money. However, they were so strong and broken that a ton of people did go and spend money to unlock them, and it really was like an apocalypse, which is just something you wouldn't expect from paid brawlers. So this was definitely an interesting time in the game and wasn't obviously the best way to start off 2024. However, this brawler got a ton of nerfs that really would just end the apocalypse, and I don't think I've ever seen a brawler get nerfed this hard in a long time. But with that, we are finally onto the most recent apocalypse, and that is with Barry, who is a brand new brawler. Once again, this is a brawler you have to purchase, but it is also just incredibly strong and OP that a lot of people did purchase it, but the main apocalypse really would have started once it became available on the Star Road. And this is obviously something that's still ongoing, so I don't have much else to really add to this, but I really do hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all in the next one.